Welcome back to another great episode of Art and Hearts with your instructor, me, Miss Smith. Today we're going to talk about found objects and giving meaning to those objects. We're going to also hear from an artist named Lillian Blades, and she's going to talk about her process. Lillian is a painter, but her paintings actually are three-dimensional. She puts objects on them, found objects, that she collects and that have meaning to her or that represent meaning for her. And she's an artist based in Atlanta. She is originally from the Bahamas and her work is beautiful. So we'll hear from her in a minute. But before we do that, you might be saying, Miss Smith, what do you mean by found objects? I mean literally any found object that you see. That could be a piece of cardboard, that could be a rock, that could be a button, that could be a piece of paper. It could also be a recycled popsicle stick, right? Anything that you find, of course, clean it first. Tell your parents what you're doing, preferably let them in, let them help work with you. So one project that I've been working on is, I think I mentioned this before, I photograph landscapes that have experienced battles on them. For example, battles that have occurred during the Revolutionary War and battles that have happened during the Civil War, and how those lands have experienced some trauma. But one thing that I've been doing, a big part of my work, my art process, is my practice, is that I've been collecting rocks that I find on my walks and everything. And the photographs that I've been taking, I actually, I don't know if you can see that. I will show you a photo as well of all the rocks that I collect. And they're my photographs that I took, and I put them on the rocks that I've been collecting. So this is a big one. This is a rock that I found, I was walking with my friend, and we found them. And she actually helped me carry them, which was so sweet of her. So thanks, Marta. And anyway, so these are, this image I took, it's from Concord, Massachusetts. And I'm going to show you today how you can put this on the rock, okay? So another thing too that is important to me that I love, that I've been collecting for this work, are embroidery hoops, many different kinds. And so I might put an image through it or something, because I'm giving it meaning. It's something that's important to me. So for Lillian, her work, and I'm going to show you some of my students, they have rocks that they painted. So let's take a quick look at their work. Isn't that beautiful?
I feel like I'm building my personal vocabulary, visual vocabulary. So starting off, being from the Bahamas, I was born and raised in the Bahamas, and I moved to the South, Savannah. I went to SCAD, and I finished my graduate degree at Georgia State University and got married and stayed. So I have influences from being in the Caribbean as well as being in the South, and I always look at my ancestral background in Africa, preferably West Africa. And so those influences show up in the work in subtle ways. It's like I'm taking fragments of all of those ancestral as well as like present influences that I have in the work through fragments. And it's in a way a process of building a visual comfort, just like a quilt would be comfortable to be under. It's just to kind of affirm who I am, what my foundation is. My mother was a seamstress, and she died in childbirth with me. So the idea of sewing and dissecting clothing is like looking back. And there's a piece that's called the Sankofa, from the Sankofa series, which is a Dacra symbol, meaning to go back and fetch it or to learn from your past. I use that as a symbol to build on. And now I'm using things that are related more more to where we are now, especially using eyes with relationships and mirrors to bring the viewer into the work. So it's a range. I started off more dwelling in the past, and I'm focusing more on the present, projecting into the future. And I see my personal story of my mother as seamstress as a microscopic view of just any diasporan person looking at their ancestral background to build on with the quilting. So I see the quilt as many seamstresses coming together to work together to make something that's bigger, that represents a large group of people beyond me and my dress. So it's like the dress will become a part of the quilt eventually. So like the white dress is for the beginning of the journey, and it will eventually become stained with the experiences of life and then become a part of the quilt. And what I'm doing is looking back by dissecting the clothes and adding them as the paint for the canvases. I have a background in painting, so that is commenting on that as well. It's almost like they become pixelated, abstract, expressionistic paintings where I'm thinking more three-dimensionally with the way I approach the painting. It's still a painting, it's just three-dimensional and using materials that in a symbolic way.
Right, and so that kind of explains your choice of material with the fabric and then the found objects and the paint.
Yeah, and floral fabrics bring together both of my moms. My aunt raised me. I didn't find out about my mother's death until I was 12. So I see her as this mystery that I don't know about. So that's why I leave the quilt kind of patchy, so to represent the holes and things that I don't know. But it's still held together, and there's still a lot that I do know. So I'm acknowledging the things that I don't know, the mystery, as well as with the frames. The picture frames are about capturing memory and the potential and loss of memory. And we always use it to celebrate things that are special. So I like to use that as well. And I like the button. The button is a personal symbol as well because it's about trying to make a connection, and it's related to sewing. So I like the ones with two holes in it because it's like eyes. And it's like if you acknowledge the eyes being there, they're there. Just like if you want to acknowledge your ancestral background and its influences and stuff, it could be there. A lot of people don't really want to focus on that, but I think it's important. And just all the make-do ways of attaching things is kind of connected to. I always picture my Grammy and how she, in her home in the Bahamas, and how she just used a nail to hold the fence closed. And it had this patina around it. It was just always so beautiful. I like the way how things have a patina from just being loved and used, and I just like to see that history in the objects that I use as well.
Okay, great. So welcome back. I am going to show you how I'm going to take this image that I photographed, and I am going to glue it onto this rock here that I found. And again, we're talking about giving meaning to found objects. This is an object in my local park that I found, and I'm trying to give meaning to it. And this is from a series of photographs I've been taking called Bloody Soil, and it explores the landscapes and the battlegrounds where some battles took place, such as this is from the Minute Mile in Concord, Massachusetts during the Revolutionary War. And yeah, so this is a series I've been working on about history, loss, memory, and regeneration, regrowth. So it's an important image to me, and I want to give it meaning to it on this rock, okay? A found object. So as I go here, I am going to be using Mod Podge. There's several different types that you can use. This is kind of a matte finish. This is like a waterproof finish that's and that you can supposedly go outdoors. So I am going to try this out and see what happens. And yeah, because if I ever want to put it outside, maybe it will actually last. So I have my scissors. Again, do this with an adult. We're not doing this by ourselves, okay? And I'm just kind of cutting around the image. And how I put this image on this paper, that's for another episode. It's called an image transfer. That's for another day. But anyways, you could still take any image, any photo you want, photocopy it if it's a family photo. You can cut it out. You can tape it on a found object. You can glue it as I'm doing. There's so many different ways that you can do this onto any object. That, remember, don't hurt yourself. Try not to use an object that's sharp or has spiky edges. You want something that has meaning to you and that you can add meaning to maybe a found object, such as I did with the found rock. Okay, so we have that. So it's going to kind of overlap a little bit. So let me get out the glue, and I have a scrap piece of paper here. And I'm just going to put a little bit here so I can put the glue on the scrap paper. It's quite a bit of glue. Okay. And I can get the edges with the brush, just so it's not, doesn't go wasted. All right. So I'm going to first, what I'll first do, I'm going to try to do the backs of this. This is a very, well, it's a thin paper, but it's a thick paper. This is a type of paper that they use for printmaking. It's called kitakata paper. Very nice paper, but it is, no, actually, I'm sorry, this is not kitakata paper. This is another fibrous paper called abaca paper. Yeah, abaca paper. It looks thinner than it is, but it's actually quite thick. So I'm going to move the rock over for a minute so I can put the glue on here. Okay. Always good to have a window open when you're working, just for ventilation, right? Just to have that. And I'm not putting a ton of glue on, right? I'm just putting enough because I want to make sure both sides, this is the back side that I'm doing. Many times I've glued on an image just on the front side, and I found that there wasn't enough glue and it starts to eventually start to kind of peel off. So I don't want to do that, okay? I'm going to make sure, whoops, I'm going to make sure I get the edges in. Great, awesome. Back to my rock here. So I did the back side. Now I'm going to position this kind of the way I'd like it to be placed. Okay. And I'm smoothing it down, but I'm not going too rough on it, right? Because I don't want to tear it. It is a thick paper, but it can still tear because the glue makes it more vulnerable to tear. It's kind of wet and damp, so smoothing it out, but kind of softly. I'm taking my time with it. Because many times when you put a glue like on the back of an image, or any kind of image, even if it's a thick paper, and when you're kind of smoothing out the glue, it can easily tear, and I don't want to do that. All right, so I think pressing down and maybe get rid of any air bubbles. Okay, now I'm going to put glue on the top because I want to seal it in case I ever put this outside or whatever. Okay, here we go. And this type of Mod Podge that I just showed you, the outdoor kind, really gives us a shiny finish. So if you don't like a shiny finish, I would recommend something more of a matte, which is like that. It doesn't shine as much, but maybe that's what you're going for. right, great. So we'll see how this dries, okay? And we'll show up again once this layer dries and see how it looks, okay? All right, great. This looks really good. The rock dried. And see how it is really shiny and glossy. That type of Mod Podge. Again, if you're looking for more of a matted finish, I would use more of a matted finish of the Mod Podge. So, all right, and so I hope you really liked today's lesson and how you can add personal meaning to a found object. If you like this lesson, please hit the like and subscribe button and share. All right, till next time, I'll bring the arts, you bring the hearts. Bye.